Hey guys, Anthony and Clarissa. Today we're going to talk about turns. Now we've created a lot of videos and a lot of content on turning, but most of it is the connection of turn or spotting or something from the waist up. In this video, we're specifically going to concentrate on the feet. Okay, so like how do I use my feet through a turn? So the first thing I can say is there's more than one way to do it. There's more than one type of turn. So the turns, like for a two-step for example, that we use pivot turns, we use Shanae turns, and we use spirals. Okay, so I'm going to break down those three different types of turns and then show you how you would use them or where in two-step you would use them. So the first is a pivot turn. Okay, so a pivot turn is anything that if I'm turning her, she would step half, 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 half. So that's called a pivot turn. The second one is a Shanae. So what she's going to do is she's going to step together, apart, together, apart, together, apart. Okay? Now a spiral turn would be something where I would turn her and she would step, step, and then spiral around. Step, step, and spiral. Okay? So there are uses for all three of those types of turns in two-step. Now, so the first thing I would say about pivot turns in general is if I picture us walking across rooms. So like if we made footprints and we made footprints in a straight line through the studio. Now those footprints are across the studio, and what I want to do in a pivot turn is I want to go through those same footprints without making any new ones, turning a half of a rotation in between. So if I'm doing pivot turns, I'm going to turn, there's half, I'm working my way through those same footprints as I'm moving down this line of dance. Okay, now one of the things that people mess up with pivot turns is they try to step through the turns. If you watch me do this pivot turn, I'll try turn the other way. My feet essentially down here are locked. I'm rotating, but my feet will essentially stay the same. So if you watch, it's kind of like my legs are in this position, and when I turn, they stay the same until I get to that opposite foot, and then they both turn together again. So one mistake people make is they'll get to about half of that and they'll try to pivot or swivel out of that. But when I do a pivot turn, my feet are essentially locked and I'm turning half, half, half. So everything from here down will essentially stay in that position. Okay? Now there's a step and then there's a rotation and then a step and then a rotation, which means a step is a weight change. So if I'm in this position, I make my step or my weight change, then there's a rotation. Then there's a step, and then there's a rotation. So you have step, turn, step, turn, step, turn, step, turn. Okay, now one thing I'll say, like, if you're a beginner, don't try to turn around the heels. Always rotate around the ball of the feet. Okay, that's also really important. But you have half, 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 half. Now, what pivot turns, you're gonna have a lot of things in country dance in particular where people like, I'm either team pivot or I'm team Shanae or whatever. Like, so you got it. Like, you don't have to choose. Like, you should choose when one is appropriate because there are benefits to using one or the other. If I'm turning Clarissa here, and we're doing it two-step or West Coast swing or whatever it is, if I'm just turning her, like I'm walking alongside him, she's turning, I almost universally teach those as pivots. Some people will say Shanaes. Shanaes look very sharp. There's some benefits to Shanaes too. So if your teacher or somebody has told you to do Shanaes, I'm not arguing with them because that's valid too. But I'm just saying from our point of view, if I'm turning her and she's turning and she's the only one turning, I pretty much universally teach pivots. And the reason why, the benefit to a pivot is they are steady. They are consistent. Tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock. So they're probably the most controlled and balanced of the different types of turns, which is kind of what we want. The second thing is with a pivot, they are constantly moving down a line of dance. You can cover more ground. It's like I go and I go and I go and I go. A Shanae, on the other hand, go, stops, go, stops. So you get this type motion. The benefit to a Shanae, on the other hand, I'm going to break that down in a second. A Shanae gets the illusion of speed. Shanaes are not faster than pivots. People think they are because what you get with a pivot, if I turn pivots and I'm coming at you, you get this steady turn. Now I can spot and make these look much sharper, but the idea is it's constantly this consistent motion. But what you get with a Shanae is you have basically a little bit of turn and all the turn, a little bit of turn and all the turn. So you get a contrast with a Shanae that gives the illusion of speed. But the music's going to play whatever speed it is. It has no awareness that you're dancing to it anyways. So you're not going to turn faster than music whether you do pivot or Shanaes. The Shanaes just give you the benefit of the illusion of speed. Okay, so let's talk about Shanaes for a second. And let's have Clarissa stand here beside so you can actually see us both. So if we both, and stay there so we can see it at this angle. if we both step forward with our right foot, what I'm gonna do, instead of turning half and keeping my feet apart, with a Shanae, what we'll do is we'll turn 1/4 of a turn as we bring our feet together. So we'll be facing the side. So this is 1/4 of a turn. So right now my weight's on my right foot, and I'll turn 1/4 as I bring my feet together. I transfer the weight onto the left foot, and around the left foot turn 3/4. So I'm gonna turn 1/4, 3/4. So what you get is you get a little rotation and then a lot of rotation, which gives it that contrast or the illusion of speed that we talked about. So you get a little turn and all the turn. You get everything kind of happening in bursts, if that makes sense. So there's some benefit to doing that. The problem, the downside, the reason why we choose pivots for most turns is it's moving, it's covering ground. You can get that with a pivot that you can't get with a Shanae in the same way. So now if I'm doing anything with two-step where I'm turning her, I teach pretty much exclusively pivot turns for any time I'm walking alongside of her. However, if we are both turning, it tends to work better as Shanaes. So if I'm here, let's do this tandem turn. So our feet are apart. Then by the way, anything in tandem means we are both turning. So from here, we bring our feet together and then we have all of that rotation. We bring our feet together and all of that rotation. So even if we're doing something like a side-by-side free spin, if we're here, what'll happen is we'll bring our feet apart, together, apart, and through. So anytime that we are both turning at the same time, anything that's done in tandem, then Shanaes tend to work better there because it's just kind of easier. It makes everything connect so much better. They look cool too. So the third type of turn that we do in two-step would be a spiral turn. Now spiral, where a pivot, so a pivot turns half, half, a Shanae goes 1/4, 3/4, a spiral goes none and all. Right? So if I'm doing a spiral turn, I would take 2 steps with no rotation, get on that forward foot, turn all the way around it, take 2 more steps again, turn all the way around it as my feet get into this position. So you have none and all. That's 360 degree of turn. There are some instances where you would use a spiral, and I'll give you one. So if I'm here, I might go quick, quick, slow, slow. Right? So what she's going to do is she's in that particular pattern, she's going to go pivot, 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 spiral. So if she's here, she'll do 3 pivots, half, half, half. At this point, she assumes that she's doing another, just another step. I allow her to get on that step, and then I snap it around, and it gives that ultimate in contrast. So by the way, spirals are used a lot in Latin dances like rumba or cha-cha, that sorts of things, but I find that they work really, really nice also in two-step for certain things. We might also do something like where we go quick, quick, slow, slow, and I turn her, I allow her to get onto that foot and then snap her around. That's also a spiral turn. So it gives that sudden burst, that crispness in the crispness. That's Christmas. Yeah. The best time of the year. Anyway, so it gives that crispness where it's kind of turning, stopping, and then suddenly goes. All right, so here's what you got. Just to sum it up, you have pivot turns where she turns half, 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 continuing to travel down the line of dance. These are useful for whenever I'm just turning her and we are moving down the line of dance. However, if we do something that is in tandem, meaning we're both turning, we go apart, together, apart, together, and then she can finish with those, with the pivots. However, if I'm turning something where I want that extra crispness, I set her on that foot and snap it. Quick, quick, slow, slow. That could be pivot, 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 spiral. And I hope that's been helpful. Oh, that's been helpful. If you guys have any questions, okay, so we're going to show you guys a little bit of the footwork and what these different types of turns look like. If you have any questions, just feel free to leave the questions down below, and we'll see you guys next time.